When our daughter was 6, my husband still wouldn't let her call him dad, simply because his first love son had a manic disorder and couldn't be stimulated. When he once again refused my request to accompany our daughter on her birthday due to his first love son's illness, I finally gave up, prepared the divorce agreement, and left with my daughter. When I went to the school to transfer Arya, her homeroom teacher asked in confusion, "Why are you transferring Arya when she's doing so well here?" I replied calmly, "Her father wants to take us to immigrate." The homeroom teacher exclaimed, "That's great. I always thought you were a single-parent family, but now I realize I was mistaken." I curled my lips.
Not yet, but soon. 1.
Arya's eyes were glued to the inflatable slide in the mall. I stroked her head and said softly, "It's a holiday today.
Play if you want to."
After paying, I sat in the rest area and saw Bella, Sebastian's first love. "What a coincidence you're here too," Bella exclaimed. I forced a smile. "Yeah, I'm here with my child." Following Bella's gaze into the playground, I froze in place at the first sight. It was Sebastian. He was swinging on a swing with Bella's son Quentin. Accustomed to Sebastian's elite image in suits, seeing him in socks on a trampoline almost made me fail to recognize him. After the surprise, a soreness welled up in my heart. Arya is so grown up now. Sebastian has never accompanied her to an amusement park once. Bella beside me noticed my sadness and added fuel to the fire. "Clara, don't you know? In order for Quentin to better get along with children of his own age, Sebastian specially built a playground for Quentin. Not only this one, but all the malls in a city have been arranged by Sebastian." Listening to Bella's words, I remained expressionless, but my hands were digging deep into my palms. Once, Arya really liked Hello Kitty, and I wanted to book the entire lobby of the hotel under Sebastian's group to hold a Hello Kitty-themed party for my child, at the market price. But when Sebastian found out, he scolded me. "Have you ever thought about how bad such a luxurious party would be for a child's values?" Even when I explained that it was just once, he wouldn't agree. "As my wife, you should set an example. It's not good to affect the grassroots employees for your personal desires." In the end, I had to compromise and set it up at home and invite friends to celebrate. Even so, Sebastian thought it was too extravagant and had a big fight with me, and we were cold for a month. Now, looking at this luxurious playground and Sebastian's doting smile, I finally understood. It turns out that Sebastian doesn't care about principles or influence, but I and my daughter are not worth him breaking his principles. All the malls in a city, you can imagine how much investment and favor Sebastian used. Bella beside me waved her arm. It turned out that Quentin was waving to her. Sebastian also looked up with a smile, and his eyes turned cold when he saw me. He walked over with the child in his arms. "Why are you here?" Quentin buried his face tightly in Sebastian's neck when he saw me. I said indifferently, "My daughter likes to play on the trampoline. Can't I bring her to play?" Sebastian frowned. "It's not a rest day today. Children should develop better study habits at a young age." I smiled bitterly. My daughter has been arranged for all kinds of training classes all year round, and she doesn't even have time to breathe. Seeing Sebastian searching for my daughter in the field with a cold face, I knew he was going to scold Arya for being lazy and playful. I swallowed the words about transferring my daughter's school and changed the subject. "Does Quentin want to go to the toilet?" Sebastian looked at the child and immediately took him to the bathroom. I took the opportunity to find Arya and took her away. "Be good, let's go play somewhere else." Although Arya was reluctant, she obediently put on her backpack. On the way back, Arya was a little down, and I felt strange. "What's wrong, baby? Aren't you happy?" she said sadly. "Actually, I saw Dad just now. He was holding another child." The smile I raised froze halfway. She looked up at me. "Dad promised me that as long as I got first place in my grade, he would celebrate my birthday with me. I did it. Will Dad come?" Looking at her longing eyes and the scene just now, the soreness in my heart went straight to my eyes. I could only hold back my sobs and say, "Okay, I'll ask him for you." Then I took out my phone and called Sebastian. It took 8 times before he answered. "What's up?" The man's voice was impatient. Facing my daughter's expectant eyes, I said, "Arya got first place in her grade, and she wants you to keep your promise and celebrate her birthday with her. Sebastian on the other end of the phone paused. I see. Then he hung up the phone quickly. But I was not disappointed. I happily hugged my daughter and told her, Dad will definitely come to celebrate your birthday. My daughter immediately swept away the initial gloom and hugged my neck with a smile. When we got home, she carefully smoothed out the creases on the report card and placed it neatly on the coffee table. Seeing her serious look, I couldn't help but laugh. But my daughter said seriously, this way Dad can see my report card as soon as he comes home.
2.
Daddy will be here soon. Our daughter said expectantly after we had carefully prepared the food and cake. But until late at night, Sebastian still hadn't returned, and even the calls I made were ruthlessly hung up. Seeing my daughter trying to hide her disappointment, I took a deep breath and suppressed my anger. Handing the phone to my daughter, I said softly, Honey, let's call Daddy again. After a long beep, Sebastian finally answered, and my daughter exclaimed excitedly, Daddy, when are you coming home? Before she could finish, the phone was hung up. My daughter and I looked at each other speechlessly. Finally, my daughter couldn't hold back her tears and cried into my arms. I felt the trembling little body in my arms, and my heart ached. I could only wipe away her tears and encourage her. It's okay, honey. We won't celebrate your birthday with Daddy. Mommy is enough for you. My daughter bravely cheered up and was about to eat the cake when there was a sound at the door, and Sebastian came back.
Dad.
Before my daughter could finish calling out, Sebastian rushed in and grabbed my daughter, trying to take her away. Aria stumbled, and the cake in her hand fell on her clothes. It hurts, let go. My daughter cried loudly, and I quickly stepped forward to stop him. It's your child's birthday today. What are you doing? Sebastian's tightly furrowed brows were full of ferocity, and he roared at me. I told you how many times? Don't call me Dad. Why are you calling me randomly? Quentin accidentally answered the phone and heard Aria call me Dad, and he cut himself several times. Hearing this, I became even angrier. You promised to come celebrate your child's birthday, and you didn't come. Is it wrong for your child to call you and ask? I'm very busy every day, and you bother me with these little things every day. I laughed angrily, my voice choked with sobs. You're busy? Why did Quentin accidentally answer the phone? Were you with Bella and her son at that time, right? You have time to play on the trampoline with other people's sons, but you're too busy for your own daughter's birthday? Sebastian's face turned unnatural for a moment, then he pulled his daughter again. The most urgent thing now is for Aria to apologize to Quentin. Quentin's condition has just improved, and we must keep it stable. Quentin, it's always Quentin. Why, for the sake of Bella's son's so-called mania, do I have to keep grievance my child? Sebastian is her biological father, but he has been forbidden to call him Dad since birth, just because Bella said her son suffered from mania and would self-harm if he heard other children call Sebastian Dad. When Aria was young, she always couldn't help it, and later, even if Quentin wasn't around, Sebastian would frown and stop her. Such a young child would be scared to call her father. Thinking of this, I didn't know where I got the strength from, and I snatched my daughter from Sebastian's hands. Clara, can't you be more sensible? I'm just a shrew. I'm just not sensible. Sebastian was stunned. He had never seen me so hysterical before. I shouted at him with red eyes. Today you can't wrong my daughter to please someone else's son. Sebastian frowned, his eyes fixed on me. Clara, don't force me to take drastic measures. I stood in front of the child. If you dare, don't blame me for fighting to the death with you. During the confrontation, the phone rang. Sebastian glared at me fiercely before answering the phone. In the quiet space, the voice on the phone was crystal clear. Sebastian, Quentin keeps calling for you. What should I do? Bella's voice was crying, and Sebastian carefully instructed, regardless of my presence. It's okay, I'm here. I'll be right back. After finishing speaking, Sebastian turned around and left directly. After hearing the door close, I relaxed and collapsed on the ground. Taking a deep breath to ease the dizziness, I remembered Aria. When I turned around, she was standing there quietly, expressionless, not knowing how long she had been watching. Seeing her so wooden, I couldn't help but regret it. All along, I have been trying to repair my marriage relationship with Sebastian. I don't want to leave a bad impression of Sebastian in my daughter's heart. But what I have been working hard to maintain was shattered in one day. I tried to force a smile and squatted down to say to my daughter softly, "Baby, be good. Daddy can't celebrate your birthday with you, but Mommy can. Whatever birthday wish you have, Mommy will fulfill it for you. Do you want toys or go to the amusement park?" She shook her head and hugged me, saying, "My only wish this year is that as long as Mommy is with me, I don't want to see Daddy, okay?" I looked at her deeply and was silent for a long time. Reaching out to wipe away the tears from the corners of her eyes, I hugged her tightly and choked. "Of course, baby. We won't care about Daddy. Mommy will always be with you." In my arms, she finally cried. After putting her to sleep, I looked at her sleeping face, and the thought of leaving had never been so firm. 3. My daughter didn't complain much, but where can a child hide her worries? She was gloomy for several days. To cheer her up, I took her to the castle she had wanted to visit for a long time. I also bought her many toys. When she came back, she smiled more and sang and danced with the toys following the TV program. Even so, she didn't give up her homework because of my attitude. After she fell asleep, I was also ready to rest. Then there was a noise outside the door, and the next second the door opened. Sebastian, who had been missing for several days, came in with Quentin and Bella. Seeing me, Sebastian's face flashed with embarrassment. "Why aren't you resting so late?" I didn't answer, and asked directly, "What are you doing here?" Bella immediately answered, "Clara, don't get me wrong, Sebastian is worried about you and your daughter." Quentin rushed back as soon as his condition stabilized. With Bella's roundup, Sebastian was also persuaded and became more confident. "Yeah, we didn't even sleep. We rushed here directly from the hospital. Aren't we afraid that you'll think too much? You're so hard on me." I didn't want to listen to their sophistry, and I was about to ask them to get out. My daughter rubbed her eyes and came out of the room. "What happened, Mom?" My daughter was smiling at first, but her face froze when she saw Sebastian at the door. Without saying a word, she lowered her head and ran straight into my arms. It was very different from the closeness she had with Sebastian before. But Sebastian didn't feel anything, and he ordered his daughter loudly, "Arya, it's a good thing your brother is here. Now apologize to your brother. Brother got hurt very badly because of you." Hearing this, my daughter became even sadder, her eyes red as she hugged me tightly. Sebastian kept urging, "Hurry up." I hugged my daughter directly. "What's wrong with Arya? I haven't seen anyone who has to apologize to their father for calling him dad." Sebastian quickly covered Quentin's ears. He whispered, "Clara, I told you Quentin can't hear." "Why is he here if he can't hear? Isn't the villa you bought for them and their mother enough to live in? Why do you have to rush to squeeze in here?" I sneered. "Or is it more fun to use other people's things?" Bella's face changed when she heard this, and she said to Sebastian, "Sebastian, it's us, a lonely mother and child, who are unwelcome. Quentin and I will leave now. You can coax Clara and the more." Sebastian, whose face was originally embarrassed, became annoyed again. "Clara, can you stop being unreasonable? 4. Can you be a little kinder?" As he said this, he saw the scattered dolls on the living room floor and asked me, "Didn't Arya go to school again today?" I didn't bother to answer him. "What does it have to do with you? I've told you, children at this age should develop good habits. They should be taught to have a sense of shame. Arya talked nonsense and hurt Quentin, and now you're giving her a holiday and buying her toys. She will think this is right and become lawless." Listening to Sebastian's words, the light in Arya's eyes gradually dimmed, and Quentin, hugging Sebastian, asked timidly, "Dad, who are they?" I smiled. "I told you, don't let Arya call you Dad, but you dare to recognize a son outside." Sebastian panicked for a moment, then pursed his lips and said nothing. In the tense atmosphere, Bella disregarded Quentin's cries and forcibly took him from Sebastian's arms. "Brother Sebastian, thank you for taking care of me and my son during this time. I don't want to make things difficult for you." Quentin cried, "I want Daddy to hold me." Bella slapped the child.
What are you shouting about?
That's someone else's father. Your father abandoned us long ago. For a moment, the room was filled with crying, and Bella walked up to me. Clara, I know you have misunderstandings about me, but the fact is that Brother Sebastian just wants to help us. If you really mind, my leaving can reassure you. He is a good man. Don't let him down. Then she hugged the crying child. Brother Sebastian, we're leaving. Thank you for your care. Before Sebastian could reply, she ran out with tears in her eyes. Sebastian was full of heartache and looked at me with disappointment. Clara, you used to be so kind. You've changed. If this goes on, there's no need for a marriage. I hope we can both take some time to reflect on ourselves. I didn't hesitate to agree. Okay, since you're here today, I need you to sign your child's insurance policy. He took it, signed his name without even looking. Without turning his head, he went directly to chase after Bella and her son. Arya saw everything that happened, and she came to me, feeling something was wrong. Mom, is Dad going to leave us? I touched her head. No, it's we who don't want him. He doesn't deserve to be your father. The divorce agreement was submitted, and the lawyer told me that it would be almost done after the 30-day cooling-off period. During this time, I sold everything I could sell and exchanged it for cash. I submitted an application to my company and went overseas to explore. During this period, Sebastian never contacted me. Arya's academic performance has always been excellent, and with additional credits for her musical talent, a primary school abroad quickly approved her application. After I finished the procedures at Arya's current school, she stayed at home and video chatted with the foreign teacher I contacted to make a transition. The day before we left, I helped her pack her small luggage, and I also told her about the customs and new friends in a foreign country. After listening, she was silent for a long time. What's wrong, baby? I noticed her emotional abnormality and asked with concern. Are you scared? She shook her head.
She stammered.
Do I have to say goodbye to Dad? I was stunned for a moment, then realized that children of this age are most dependent on their parents. And besides, blood is thicker than water, and the connection between them is difficult to cut off. Seeing her expectant eyes, I couldn't say no. Even as a mother, I had no right to prevent my child from seeing her biological father. So after putting Arya to sleep, I hesitated and called him. I thought I would have to call several times as usual before he answered, but this time it was surprisingly smooth. Hello, Clara? I got straight to the point. I have something to tell you. Before I could speak, Sebastian interrupted me. This call is just in time. Quentin's condition has been responded to by a foreign expert. This is a rare opportunity. I'm going to take Bella and them abroad for half a year. We're leaving tomorrow. Are you listening? I replied. Sebastian softened his tone. Clara, you'll have to suffer a little bit for half a year, and I'll make it up to you and Arya when I come back. By the way, what did you want to say? Nothing. I paused and then continued. I wish you a pleasant journey. Before Sebastian could reply, I hung up the phone. The next day, my daughter and I arrived at the airport smoothly. And there was not much traffic. I had mailed most of the things in advance, and my daughter and I only carried a small amount of luggage. As we were about to board the plane, Arya looked back at the way we came, and I knew she was waiting for someone. When she realized that no one would come to see her off, she grabbed my hand sadly. I silently held her back. Mom will always be with you. Arya nodded. Suddenly, a man's surprised voice came from behind. Clara, Arya, why are you here too? I turned around and saw Sebastian holding Bella's hand in one hand and Quentin's in the other, looking like a family of three. My gaze swept across their hands, and Sebastian reflexively let go. There are a lot of people at the airport, Bella smiled and said to Sebastian. Brother Sebastian, I guess Clara wants to surprise you and suddenly appeared at the airport to go with us to treat Quentin's illness. Clara, you are so resourceful. You even know our flight. Sebastian's face turned black. I thought you had reflected, but I didn't expect you to be waiting for me here. I told you I would be back in half a year. Why are you still not at ease? Can you mess with your child's studies? How did you find out about my flight from which secretary? Arya, who had been quiet all the time, suddenly spoke. Uncle Sebastian, you misunderstood my mother. We are going abroad to play. not to see a doctor for you.
5.
I was stunned and looked at my daughter beside me. Her eyes were indifferent, but her eyes were red. Arya, what did you call me? Sebastian froze for a moment and asked incredulously. My daughter called out again. Uncle Sebastian. Sebastian found it hard to accept. I'm your real dad. Bella cleared her throat, and Sebastian stopped talking. He looked at Quentin, who was looking up at him, and after a long silence, he finally said, You and Mom have fun, and I'll come pick you up later. I didn't say anything, and with my daughter, who was completely disappointed in Sebastian, I turned and boarded the plane without looking back. After sitting down, my daughter didn't want to look up, and I coaxed her gently. I saw tears all over her face.
Comforting me, she said.
It's okay, Mom, don't be sad. I hugged her. There are many small animals where we are going. Doesn't Arya like small animals the most? Arya nodded. I want to raise a rabbit when I get there. After arriving at our new home, Arya was exposed to new things and her condition improved a lot. After a few days, she hit it off with the neighbor's children. The next morning, after taking my daughter to the new school to go through the formalities, I came to the company. On the way, I received a message from Bella. In the photo, the man was holding a child and talking to the doctor seriously. The child looked at Sebastian with adoration. Another message was sent. Brother Sebastian is such a good father, isn't he? I didn't reply and casually threw my phone into the car, without a ripple in my heart. Sebastian and I are just one divorce certificate away, and we have no other relationship. I blocked Bella's number. This person will no longer appear in my and Arya's life. 6. It's just that I didn't expect Sebastian to call. In the past, I called him many times, begging him to come home and see the children more often. Every time, he would impatiently agree verbally and then break his promise without any guilt. Now that Quentin's treatment is at a critical stage, logically speaking, he should have even less time to care about me and Arya. After the phone was connected, Sebastian's voice came over. Clara, are you having fun with Arya? I sarcastically curled my lips. Not knowing whether he was too confident that I and Arya would not leave him, or if he was really focused on Bella and her son, and didn't realize it at all. Having fun, is there anything you need? Sebastian softened his tone. I've reflected on what happened these past few days, and I've indeed been a little unfair to you and Arya. The doctor said that Quentin's illness has a great chance of being cured, and I'll come back to accompany you when he gets better. By the way, where's the child? I want to talk to her. I refused directly. Don't spoil her fun when she's having a good time. At this time, Bella's voice came from the other end of the phone. Sebastian, Quentin keeps asking to see you. I'll be right there. Sebastian hurriedly left me a sentence. Tell Arya I'm sorry, and Dad will definitely give her a grand birthday party later. I watched the phone hang up without any waves and walked into the company. The overseas company is in a state of rapid development, and the branch president is eager for talent. Holding my hand, he couldn't help but exclaim, You came at the right time. I took his hand. I'm also counting on you to help me progress. I worked hard, not only to realize my own value, but also to give my daughter a better life. When my daughter came home from school, she chatted with me nonstop about what happened at school. Seeing her cheerful look, most of the previous gloom faded away. The school is so beautiful, and my classmates are all very nice to me, and some even gave me small gifts. Hearing her finally stop being a little adult and showing a little of the way a child should be, I was very relieved. Over the next 3 months, my daughter and I slowly adapted to our new life. Sebastian called frequently, which was unusual, and he probably felt something. His tone became more and more gentle, and his attitude became better and better. But my patience for him was getting less and less. When the man asked to talk to the child again, I finally couldn't bear it anymore. Sebastian, it was you who didn't let the child call you Dad, and it was you who broke your promise repeatedly. Is there any point in acting like a good father here? Before Sebastian could argue, I hung up the phone directly. Sebastian obviously realized that I was different from before, and he called me the next day. Clara, I can go home early.
So what?
I asked indifferently. On the other end of the phone, he was puzzled. When I go back to China, I can accompany you and Arya well. I don't need you to worry about Arya and me. The man on the other end of the phone was silent for a while. Wife, are you still angry? I said indifferently. No, is there anything else? I'm going to hang up. Sebastian begged in his voice. Can you and Arya come pick me up when I return to China? I refused coldly. I don't have time, and neither does Arya. Can't the secretary pick you up? Don't bother me with such trivial matters. Sebastian said similar words to me. Sebastian hung up the phone in silence.
7.
I won't pity Sebastian, because the hurt and disappointment he caused me and Arya are 10 times more than that. The secretary knocked on the door, signaling that the client had arrived. I gathered my thoughts and went to the meeting room. The negotiation with both parties went smoothly, and the commission for signing this contract was very generous. Not only did it give me a sense of accomplishment, but the generous commission also gave me and Arya more confidence. It was almost time for Arya to get off school, and I bought the salmon that Arya loves. On the way to pick up Arya, my phone vibrated frantically. I picked up the phone and saw that it was Sebastian. Clara, I can't get through to you. Where are you and Arya? Why is the house so empty? I didn't want to continue listening to his boring nonsense, so I threw the phone away and directly blocked him. I'll contact him again when I can get the divorce certificate. After returning home, I started to make salmon and other dishes she loves. When I was done, I called her over, wanting to surprise her. Baby, come quickly, see what's delicious. Arya was very happy at first, then she became low again. Mom, don't buy these things anymore. I was puzzled.
Why?
Isn't this your favorite? She thought for a long time before saying. I'm afraid Mom is working too hard. I realized why she was so worried. After divorcing Sebastian, she saw me working overtime frequently and felt that I was working so hard because of her. I touched her head. Don't worry, baby. Don't underestimate your mother. You can't spend all my money. Really? I nodded heavily. Of course.
8.
I was prepared for Sebastian to be clingy. The one who least wants a divorce in a marriage is the beneficiary. I could feel Sebastian's attitude changing a while ago, but I didn't expect him to be unwilling to come all the way overseas. When Arya and I returned home from the supermarket, we saw him standing at the door. Sebastian's eyes were bloodshot, and he had a scruffy beard. Seeing me and Arya, he couldn't help but shout, Clara, Arya. Arya hugged me tightly and didn't say a word. Sebastian's voice choked. Baby, I'm Dad. Why don't you talk to me? I patted Arya's back comfortingly. You go upstairs first. My daughter was worried and hesitated. Mom, I touched her head. Don't worry. My daughter went upstairs step by step. Watching my daughter enter the door, I said to Sebastian, Mr. Sebastian, what are you doing here? Sebastian said urgently, Clara, you and the child don't have anything at home, and I went to your company and found out you were transferred here. Arya's homeroom teacher also said that you transferred your child to another school. I said directly, Sebastian, we are no longer in a marital relationship. Don't come to disturb my life anymore. I will decide whether to allow you to visit according to the child's wishes during the legally stipulated visitation period. If she doesn't want to see you, then I'm sorry. Please don't disturb her. Sebastian froze on the spot, incredulously saying, When did we get divorced? I said expressionlessly, The night you brought Bella and her son here. The man suddenly raised his head, his pupils constricted, and he blurted out, That insurance? No, I don't recognize it. I looked at him coldly. The divorce agreement has been submitted, and the cooling-off period is almost over. You can't deny it. Sebastian shook his head, and tears flowed down his face. Clara, why are you doing this to me? Asked back.
Why?
Don't you know why? How many times have you abandoned us for Bella and her son? How many times a year have you seen Arya? Do you know when she changed her teeth, when she got good grades, and when she quarreled with her friends? Arya worked hard to get first place in her grade and wanted you to celebrate her birthday with her. But what about you? You had a big fight on her birthday and even dragged her to apologize to Bella's son. She's your biological daughter. Have you ever said happy birthday to her? Sebastian's face turned pale. Arya is a normal child and Quentin has mania, so I can't help but pay more attention to him. I sneered. Why do you care about Bella's child? Did you make your child get this mania? You can't even take care of your own child, so you have to take on this matter? Or do you just like to take the initiative to raise other people's children? Sebastian couldn't say a word. I turned to think of something. Just check if this child's illness is real. It's just my advice to you. It hasn't been cured for so many years, and it's almost cured after less than a month abroad. Don't you think it's funny? Sebastian shook his head. No. I smiled and delivered the final blow. The main doctor in charge of Quentin in China is Bella's old lover. After hearing this, Sebastian left in despair. After that, Sebastian never appeared in front of me and Arya again. I knew he sometimes followed us. But I just pretended not to know. News from my friends in China said that Bella was kicked out of the villa by Sebastian. Sebastian unilaterally announced that he had cut ties with her. A woman with no job or ability to survive, her situation can be imagined. Later, Sebastian's parents urged Sebastian to get married, but Sebastian refused. After I got the divorce certificate, Sebastian transferred all his assets to me as a gift. He started from scratch himself. I want to earn a rich dowry for Arya. This was what Sebastian told me through a lawyer. Arya never mentioned wanting to see Sebastian, but it doesn't matter. I will raise her well and let her be as happy as other children.